The morning alarm rang through the metal halls of Aurora 7 mining station just like every other day. Jake Morrison rolled out of his small bunk and put on his work clothes. The blue jumpsuit had his name written on the chest pocket. He was 35 years old and had been fixing things on the station for 8 years now. His hands were rough from working with tools and wires every day. Down the hall, his wife Lisa was already awake in their tiny kitchen. She made coffee using water that came from recycled air moisture. Everything on the station had to be used, again and again. Nothing could be wasted when you lived in space on a floating rock. Lisa worked with the plants that fed everyone on Aurora 7. She knew how to grow food in metal boxes under fake sunlight. Her green jumpsuit was always a little dirty from soil and plant juice. Their son Danny was 8 years old and full of energy. He ran through the station halls faster than the safety rules allowed. His little sister Kate was 6 and followed him everywhere. She had long brown hair that their mother braided every morning. The children were born on Aurora 7. They had never seen real Earth or real sky. To them, metal walls and recycled air were normal life. Captain Ron Hayes was visiting the station that week. He came from Earth on a big military ship to check on things. He wore a dark blue uniform with shiny buttons and badges that showed his rank. Ron was 40 years old and had kind eyes. He liked talking to the children about Earth and what real animals looked like. Commander Alex Parker ran the whole station. He was the boss of everyone who lived there. Alex was a thin man with gray hair who always looked worried about something. He had to make sure everyone had enough food, air, and water. Running a space station was hard work with many problems every day. The station sat in the middle of an asteroid field. Big rocks floated all around them in the darkness of space. The rocks had valuable metals inside them that Earth needed. Men and women worked dangerous jobs cutting into the asteroids with laser tools. They wore thick spacesuits and moved slowly in the zero gravity outside the station. Jake started his day by checking the air recycling system. The big machines hummed and clicked as they cleaned the air that everyone breathed. One small problem could kill everyone on the station in a few hours. He tested each part carefully and wrote notes on his datapad. Lisa checked on the food plants in the growing rooms. Green tomatoes and lettuce grew in neat rows under bright lights. She measured how much water each plant needed and added liquid fertilizer to the soil. Danny and Kate went to their classes with the other station children. There were only 12 kids total living on Aurora 7. Their teacher was an old woman named Mrs. Bell who had come from Earth 20 years ago. She taught them math, reading, and science using computer screens and old books. The children learned about Earth history and what life was like on the big blue planet their parents talked about. At lunchtime, all the families ate together in the main dining hall. The room had big windows that showed the asteroid field and the stars beyond. Jake sat with Lisa and their children at their usual table. Danny told them about his science lesson while Kate drew pictures on her datapad. The food was simple but filling. Vegetable soup, bread made from protein powder, and fruit that grew in Lisa's gardens. Captain Hayes sat with Commander Parker at the officers' table. They talked in quiet voices about supplies and schedules. Ron would leave in 3 days to return to Earth. He planned to write a good report about how well the station was running. The people of Aurora 7 worked hard and took care of each other like a big family. After lunch, Jake went back to work on the station's outer hull. He put on his spacesuit and went outside through the airlock. The silence of space always surprised him. No sound at all except his own breathing inside the helmet. He could see Earth as a tiny blue dot in the distance. His home planet looked so small from here. Jake fixed a broken antenna that helped the station talk to other ships. The work took 2 hours in the cold emptiness of space. Lisa spent her afternoon teaching Kate how to plant seeds. The little girl's small hands were gentle with the tiny green shoots. She asked her mother many questions about how plants grew and why they needed light. Lisa explained that plants were like people in some ways. They needed food, water, and care to stay healthy. Kate listened carefully and promised to help take care of the garden every day. Danny played with his friends in the recreation room. They had toy spaceships and action figures of Earth soldiers. The boys made up stories about adventures on strange planets. They pretended to fight alien monsters and save Earth from danger. It was just a game to them. None of the children had Ever seen a real alien or been in any real danger? As evening came, the station's lights dimmed to copy the day and night cycle of Earth. Families gathered in their small living spaces for dinner and quiet time. Jake read stories to his children before bed. Tonight he read about cowboys on old Earth who rode horses and lived under open sky. Danny and Kate tried to imagine what a horse looked like and how big the sky really was. Lisa made tea and sat with Jake in their tiny living room. They talked about their day and made plans for tomorrow. Jake wanted to fix the water recycling system in Section 3. Lisa hoped her new potato plants would start growing soon. They were simple people living a simple life among the stars. They worked hard, loved their family, and felt safe in their home on Aurora 7. Outside their small window, the asteroid field slowly turned around them. Chunks of rock the size of mountains drifted in the darkness. The mining station was a tiny spot of light and life in the empty space between planets. Everyone who lived there depended on each other to survive. They were like a small town floating in the void, far from Earth but still very human. Commander Parker made his final checks of the station systems before going to bed. All the important machines were working well. The air was clean, the water was pure, and the power generators hummed with steady energy. 347 people lived on Aurora 7. They were miners, engineers, teachers, doctors, and families. They had built a home in space where their children could grow up safe and happy. Captain Hayes stood in the observation deck looking out at the stars. Tomorrow he would start his journey back to Earth. He would tell his commanders that Aurora 7 was running perfectly. The people here were tough and smart. They had learned to live in one of the most dangerous places humans had ever tried to make a home. He was proud of what they had built together. None of them knew that in the darkness beyond the asteroid field, strange ships were moving toward them. Ships that belonged to creatures who thought very differently about life and family and what it meant to call a place home. The warning lights started flashing red at 3 a.m. Jake Morrison woke up to the sound of alarm bells ringing through the station halls. Lisa grabbed his arm as he jumped out of bed. In the next room, Danny and Kate started crying. They had never heard the emergency alarm before. Commander Parker's voice came over the station speakers. His voice shook with fear. All residents report to emergency stations. Unknown ships approaching Aurora 7. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. Jake put on his clothes quickly and helped Lisa get the children dressed. Danny asked what was happening, but Jake did not know what to tell him. Kate held her stuffed rabbit tight against her chest. Her big eyes were full of tears. The family ran down the metal hallways with everyone else on the station. The main command center was full of people talking loudly and looking scared. Captain Hayes stood next to Commander Parker at the big control screens. The screens showed 5 large ships moving toward them through the asteroid field. The ships were long and silver with strange shapes that hurt to look at. They were bigger than anything humans had ever built. They're not responding to our radio calls, Parker said to Hayes. I've tried every frequency we know. They just keep coming closer. Captain Hayes looked at the screens with worried eyes. Those ships don't match any design in our database. They're not human ships. They're not from Earth or any of our colonies. Jake felt his heart beating fast. He held Danny's hand tight and put his other arm around Lisa. All around them, families stood together looking at the screens. Parents held their children close. Everyone was quiet now, waiting to see what would happen. The alien ships stopped just outside the asteroid field. They formed a line like they were getting ready to attack. For 10 minutes, nothing happened. Then a new voice came over the station's radio system. The voice was cold and did not sound human at all. Humans of this mining station. You will leave this place immediately. We are the Zephyrian Collective. This asteroid field belongs to us now. You have 1 hour to gather your things and go. Commander Parker grabbed the radio microphone. His hands were shaking. This is Aurora 7 mining station. We are a peaceful colony. We have legal rights to mine these asteroids. Our families live here. This is our home. The alien voice came back quickly. Your emotional attachments are not important to us. This place has materials we need for our survival. You will leave, or we will make you leave. You have 1 hour. Jake felt anger growing inside him. These creatures wanted to take away his family's home. They wanted to force his children to leave the only place they had ever known. Danny looked up at him with scared eyes. Kate was crying quietly into her mother's shoulder. Captain Hayes tried to send a message to Earth Command, but the alien ships were blocking all long-range communications. "They're jamming our signals," he told Parker. "Earth won't know what's happening here." The hour passed too quickly. Families packed whatever they could carry in small bags. Children cried as they left their toys behind. Lisa tried to save some of her plants, but there was no room in the emergency shuttle pods. Jake grabbed his toolkit and some spare parts. He did not know why he took them, but they made him feel a little better. When the hour was over, the alien ships moved closer. One of them shot a bright blue beam at the station's weapon systems. The few small laser cannons Aurora 7 had for protection against space rocks exploded in silent flashes. The station now had no way to fight back. Alien soldiers came aboard through the docking bays. They were tall and thin with gray skin and large black eyes. They wore silver uniforms and carried strange weapons that glowed with purple light. They moved in perfect formation like machines. None of them showed any emotion at all. The leader of the aliens was different from the others. He had golden marks on his uniform and spoke for the group. "I am Commander Velkoth. You will come with us now. We will take you to a place where you can live until Earth sends ships for you." Jake did not trust the aliens' words. Something felt wrong about the way they looked at the human children. Commander Velkoth's eyes stayed on Danny and Kate longer than the other people. Lisa noticed it too and pulled her children closer to her. The aliens separated the humans into groups. They put the children in one area and the adults in another. Parents tried to stay with their kids, but the alien soldiers pushed them apart with their weapons. Danny reached out for his father, but an alien guard stepped between them. "Dad!" Danny shouted, "I want to stay with you." Jake tried to push past the alien guard, but the creature was stronger than any human. "Let me stay with my son. He's just a child." Commander Velkoth walked over to them. His voice was calm and cold. "Human emotional bonds are primitive. The young ones will be safer separated from adult influence. They will adapt to new conditions more easily." Lisa screamed when she saw aliens taking Kate away. "Don't touch my daughter. Give her back to me." She fought against the guards, but they held her arms without effort. Kate cried for her mother as they carried her toward the alien ships. Captain Hayes tried to help, but 3 alien soldiers surrounded him. "This is wrong. Families should stay together. Children need their parents." The alien commander looked at Hayes like he was looking at a strange animal. "Your species puts too much importance on individual connections. It makes you weak and unable to think clearly. We will study these bonds to understand them better." Jake realized with horror what the aliens meant to do. They were not just taking the humans away from Aurora 7. They were going to experiment on them. They wanted to study human families like they were laboratory animals, as the aliens forced the adults onto transport ships. Jake saw his children being taken to a different vessel. Danny was trying to be brave, but Jake could see the fear in his son's eyes. Kate was crying and calling for her mother. Other parents were screaming and fighting to reach their kids. Commander Parker was pushed onto Jake's transport ship. Blood ran down his face where an alien had hit him. "They're taking the children to their research ship," he whispered to Jake. "I heard them talking. They want to study human emotional responses." Jake felt something cold and angry growing in his chest. These aliens had made the biggest mistake of their lives. They thought they could take his children and use them for experiments. They thought humans would just accept it and do nothing. They were wrong. The transport ship doors closed with a heavy sound. Through the small windows, Jake could see the alien research vessel where his children were being held. He put his hand against the cold glass and made a promise. He would get Danny and Kate back. He would make these aliens pay for what they had done. The aliens had no idea what they had just awakened in the humans of Aurora 7. Jake Morrison did not sleep that night. The alien prison ship was cold and dark. 50 human adults sat on metal benches in a room with no windows. The aliens had taken their children 12 hours ago. Every parent in the room was thinking the same thing. They had to get their kids back. Lisa sat next to Jake with tears on her face. She had not stopped crying since they took Kate away. "What are they doing to our babies?" she whispered. Kate was so scared. She was calling for me. "Commander." Parker had a black eye from fighting the alien guards. He spoke quietly to the group. "I've been counting the guards. There are only 4 aliens watching us. They think we're helpless without weapons." Captain Hayes leaned forward. "The aliens made a mistake. They think we'll just sit here and wait for rescue. They don't understand what happens when you take human children from their parents." Jake felt the anger burning in his chest like fire. These aliens thought they were smart. They thought humans were weak because they cared about their families. They were about to learn how wrong they were. "We need to get out of here," Jake said. "I know how their door locks work. I saw the guard input the code. It's based on sound frequencies, not numbers." A woman named Beth spoke up. Her 10-year-old son, Mark, was with the other children. "Even if we escape this room, how do we get to the research ship? It's in space. We don't have weapons or spacesuits." Jake stood up and walked to the wall. He felt along the metal panels with his hands. "I've been fixing things my whole life. Every machine has weak points, even alien machines." He found what he was looking for. Behind a loose panel was a bundle of power cables. Jake pulled out a tool from his pocket that the aliens had missed. It was a small plasma cutter used for delicate repair work. "They searched us for weapons," Jake said. "But they didn't know this was a weapon. To them, it just looked like a broken tool." Jake used the plasma cutter to carefully cut into the power cables. Sparks flew, and the lights in the room went out. Emergency lighting came on, but it was much dimmer. The door lock made a clicking sound as it lost power. Captain Hayes pushed on the door and it opened. Outside was a long hallway with more alien writing on the walls. They could hear the sound of the ship's engines humming through the metal. 4 alien guards were running toward them, confused by the power failure. The humans were ready. Commander Parker and 3 other men jumped on the first guard. The alien was strong but not ready for desperate humans fighting for their children. They took his weapon and his communication device. Jake led the group through the ship's corridors. He followed the signs he could not read but understood. All ships had the same basic layout: life support, engines, docking bays. The research ship would be connected to this one through a docking tube. They found the connection point between the 2 ships. Through a thick glass window, Jake could see the research vessel. It was bigger than their prison ship and had strange equipment attached to the outside. Somewhere inside that ship were their children. Lisa grabbed Jake's arm. "I can hear them," she whispered. "I can hear children crying." The sound made every parent in the group go quiet. Their kids were scared and alone. They were probably calling for their mothers and fathers. The aliens were doing something to them that made them cry. Jake used his plasma cutter to cut through the door lock. The docking tube was a narrow passage between the 2 ships. They had to crawl through it one at a time. Jake went first, followed by Lisa, then the others. The research ship was different from the prison ship. It had bright white lights, and the walls were covered with screens showing strange symbols. Jake could smell something chemical in the air that made his nose burn. This was a laboratory ship designed for experiments. They moved carefully through the hallways, listening for alien voices. Captain Hayes carried the weapon they had taken from the guard. It was heavy and warm in his hands. None of them knew how to use alien technology, but they would figure it out. The crying sounds got louder as they moved deeper into the ship. Jake's heart was beating so fast he thought it might burst. Danny was somewhere nearby. His little boy was scared and alone, calling for his daddy. They found a room with a large window. Inside were 12 human children sitting on the floor. Danny and Kate were holding each other in the corner. Kate's face was red from crying. Danny was trying to be brave, but Jake could see the terror in his son's eyes. 2 aliens in white coats were in the room with the children. They held strange devices that made beeping sounds when pointed at the kids. One alien was taking notes on a data pad. They were studying the children like animals in a zoo. Jake saw red. All the anger and fear he had been holding inside exploded like a bomb. His children were being hurt by creatures who had no right to touch them. He would kill every alien on this ship with his bare hands if he had to. "Get away from my kids," Jake shouted as he kicked in the door. The aliens turned in surprise. They had not expected humans to escape from their prison. One of them reached for an alarm button, but Captain Hayes shot him with the alien weapon. The purple beam hit the creature and it fell to the floor, not moving. The second alien tried to run, but Lisa tackled him. She had never hurt anyone in her life, but seeing her daughter's frightened face made her stronger than she knew she could be. She held the alien down while Commander Parker took his weapons. "Daddy, Mommy." Danny and Kate ran to their parents. Jake held his children tight against his chest. They were alive. They were safe. Nothing else mattered in the universe. But they were not safe yet. Alarm bells started ringing through the research ship. More aliens would come soon. They had to get the children and escape before the guards found them. Lisa looked at the other children in the room. Some of them were too scared to move. Others had strange marks on their arms where the aliens had done tests. Beth found her son Mark and saw that he had been given some kind of injection. "What did you do to them?" Jake shouted at the alien Lisa was holding down. The creature looked at him with its large black eyes. "We studied their emotional responses to separation and fear. We wanted to understand why humans become irrational when their offspring are threatened." Jake felt the plasma cutter in his hand getting warm. He wanted to use it on this alien. He wanted to hurt it the way it had hurt his children. But Danny was watching him. His son needed to see his father being strong, not cruel. "You're about to learn something about humans," Jake told the alien. "We become very dangerous when you hurt our children, and we never ever give up." The alien's eyes went wide with what might have been fear. For the first time, it was beginning to understand what it meant to threaten a human family. The alarm bells were getting louder. Jake could hear alien soldiers running through the ship's hallways. They were coming fast, and there were many of them. He held Danny and Kate close while looking for another way out of the laboratory room. "There," Captain Hayes pointed to a service tunnel in the ceiling. "We can crawl through the air ducts. It's how I used to move around ships during the war." Commander Parker lifted the children up into the tunnel one by one. The space was narrow and dark, but it was better than fighting alien guards in the hallways. Jake went last, making sure all the families were safely inside before closing the entrance behind him. They crawled through the metal ducts for what felt like hours. The children were quiet now, too scared to make noise. Kate held her mother's hand tight as they moved through the darkness. Danny stayed close to his father, trying to be brave like the soldiers in his favorite stories. Behind them, they could hear aliens searching the ship. The creatures were talking in their strange language, but Jake could tell they were angry and confused. The aliens had never dealt with humans who fought back before. They did not know what to do when their prisoners became hunters. The air duct led to the ship's engine room. Jake looked through a grate and saw two alien engineers working at control panels. The engines made a deep humming sound that vibrated through the metal walls. This was the heart of the research ship. "If we can damage the engines," Jake whispered to Hayes, "the ship won't be able to move. They'll have to focus on repairs instead of chasing us." Hayes nodded. "And if we're lucky, it might send a distress signal that Earth ships can detect." Jake used his plasma cutter to remove the grate quietly. He dropped down into the engine room behind the alien engineers. They turned around when they heard him land, but Jake was ready. He had spent his whole life working with dangerous machinery. He knew which parts were safe to touch and which ones would explode. The plasma cutter sliced through a main power coupling. Sparks flew everywhere, and the aliens jumped back in fear. Jake cut through two more connections before the creatures could stop him. The ship's engines started making horrible grinding sounds. One of the aliens tried to grab Jake, but Captain Hayes dropped down from the duct and tackled the creature. They fell together onto the metal floor. Hayes was older and smaller than the alien, but he fought with the desperation of a man trying to save human children. Commander Parker came down next, followed by the other fathers. Together they overpowered the alien engineers and tied them up with power cables. The engine room was now under human control. Jake looked at the alien control panels. He could not read their writing, but machines were machines. He found what looked like the communication system and started pressing buttons. If he was lucky, he might be able to send a message to Earth. Suddenly, the ship shook with a tremendous impact. Emergency lights flashed red and new alarms started ringing. Through the engine room windows, Jake could see bright flashes of light in space. Someone was shooting at the research ship. "Earth ships," Hayes shouted over the noise. "Those are Earth Defense Force weapons. The cavalry is here." Admiral Sam Cooper had received Captain Hayes' emergency signal just before the communications were cut. It had taken his fleet 3 weeks to reach Aurora 7, but they had come with enough firepower to fight a war. 12 human warships surrounded. The alien vessels, their weapons charged and ready. The lead Earthship broadcast a message on all frequencies. "Alien vessels, this is Admiral Cooper of the Earth Defense Force. You have attacked human civilians and taken our children. Surrender immediately, or we will destroy you." Commander Velkoth was on the bridge of his command ship when the human fleet arrived. He had expected the primitive humans to send 1 or 2 ships at most. Instead, he faced a battle group that looked ready to fight until every alien was dead. "They're not trying to negotiate," his tactical officer reported. "They're moving into attack formation. Their weapons are much more powerful than our intelligence reports indicated." Velkoth watched the human ships maneuver through the asteroid field with skill that surprised him. These were not the clumsy primitives his species had studied from a distance. These humans moved their ships like they were born in space, using the floating rocks as cover and positioning themselves for maximum tactical advantage. "Sir," another officer said nervously, "we're receiving strange readings from our research ship. The human prisoners have escaped and taken control of the engine room." Velkoth felt something he had never experienced before. It was cold and sharp in his chest, making it hard to think clearly. For the first time in his life, he was afraid. The humans were not behaving like any species the Zephyrians had ever encountered. They were supposed to be logical and predictable. Instead, they were fighting like wild animals, protecting their young. On the research ship, Jake heard the battle beginning outside. Laser beams flashed past the windows as Earthships attacked the alien fleet. He knew his people had come to save them, but the fighting was happening all around the ship where his children were hiding. "We need to get to the escape pods," he told the other parents. "This ship is going to be destroyed in the crossfire." They climbed back into the air ducts with their children. The ship was shaking constantly now from weapon impacts and engine damage. Lights flickered on and off as power systems failed throughout the vessel. Danny looked up at his father as they crawled through the narrow space. "Dad, are we going to be okay?" Jake looked into his son's eyes and saw trust there. Even after everything that had happened, Danny believed his father would keep him safe. That trust was more important than Jake's own life. "Yes, son," Jake said firmly. "We're going home." They reached the escape pod bay just as a massive explosion rocked the ship. Through the bay windows, Jake could see one of the alien vessels, breaking apart under fire from Earth weapons. The human fleet was winning the battle, but they were also destroying everything in their path. Jake got his family into an escape pod and sealed the door. The small ship launched automatically when the research vessel's hull was breached. They floated free in space, watching as Admiral Cooper's fleet finished destroying the alien ships that had dared to threaten human children. Commander Velkoth's ship was the last to fall. As his vessel died around him, he sent one final message to the Zephyrian homeworld. "Do not engage the humans. They are not like other species. When you threaten their families, they become something terrible. They will sacrifice everything to protect their young, and they will never stop hunting you until every one of you is dead." 6 months later, Jake Morrison stood in the rebuilt gardens of Aurora 7. His children played among Lisa's plants, laughing and happy. The station was better protected now, with Earth Defense Force ships permanently stationed in the asteroid field. The story of Aurora 7 had spread across the galaxy. Every alien species now knew what happened when you took something that belonged to a human. They had learned that humans were the most dangerous predators in space when their families were threatened. A new warning appeared in every galactic database. Humans, extreme caution. Never separate family units. Jake watched his children play and smiled. They were safe. They were home. And the galaxy now knew never to threaten a human family again.